Okay, we're going to talk about how to do forms in jQuery, and I realize that you're probably thinking, forms again? And yes, we did do a previous lecture on forms, but in reality, probably a lot of what you're going to be doing with JavaScript and jQuery is form validation. It's probably the most used thing that you are going to do with JavaScript. Yes, you can do a lot of other functionality with JavaScript. You can do replacing CSS. I mean, there's so many different things you can do with JavaScript and jQuery. But real-time form validation is probably one of the biggest things that you're going to do consistently. And that's why I wanted to do it again. Now, real quick, what I'm going to be teaching you guys, because in my opinion, the whole point behind jQuery is to make it simpler. Now, the last form lecture that we went through as far as validating, we taught you basically the hard way to validate. And if you would like to validate that way, which there's nothing wrong with, you can. It's pretty easy to do. Switch it over from JavaScript to jQuery. Mostly you just use the jQuery functions that you've learned through the lectures. But I'm going to show you a different way to do it that it really takes a lot of the work out of it. And basically what you're doing is you're using what's called a jQuery plugin. And what a jQuery plugin does is it allows you to call shortened calls, similar to what we do in jQuery anyway, and it will perform certain functions for you. Now, the downside to using one of these is they're not quite as versatile, and you're relying on someone else. So if you have something very specific that you need to do, or if there's a certain styling you want to do or something like that, you may want to avoid these. But for a general, quick and easy form, I think things like this work very well. There's several out there. I'm going to show you the one that we're going to be using for this lecture. The one we're going to be using for this lecture is the .validate. It's probably one of the older ones out there. Of course, that's what they say on their website. Now, the .validate, it works pretty slick. It's really nice. It's very simple. It works pretty well. There are some things I do not like about the .validate. The biggest one is their documentation is absolutely horrible. If I need to figure out a new command, I find it easier to search Google for the information on what I need to use for their validation system than I do searching their website. So it's not good. If you want to find a different one, feel free. They all operate a little bit differently. Just do a quick search for jQuery validation. Oops, not validation.org. And you're going to get several different ones out there. And in reality, a lot of it's probably going to be your personal flavor. Little websites like this are great that kind of give you several different ones. Like I said, the jQuery validation works pretty good. I did find one a little while ago that I will also include. This is another validation tool that you'll probably want to start using down the road if you'd like. This one was designed specifically for use with Bootstrap, so it's probably going to work a little better. One of the things I don't like about the jQuery validation is it doesn't seem to work real well with responsive design. So with that said, let's get started. The first thing that you'll need to do is you'll need to download the validate.com. And it works just like downloading jQuery or anything else like that. So you'll just go down, you'll find the download it, you're done. When you open it up, you'll get a file with it. It's got distribution in it. The only thing you really need is a jQuery validate. And to make it work, all you do is you're going to pop it open and you'll put it in a script. You'll notice my scripts in here. I've got the script for JS jQuery 3.1.1, which is what currently was available when I wrote this. The next one that I have is js.jQuery.validate, and I did choose the production version instead of the minified version for this particular course. If you were publishing this, I'd probably use the minified version. And then the last one is our form validation that we're going to be working off of. Now, I'm not going to go with you guys through and type out the HTML and CSS for this. I'll show you what it looks like real quick, but I'm going to include these files for you. If you would like to copy and paste them, that's fine. If you would like to get a little of extra practice and type the form out, that's probably even better. So let's show you real quick what it looks like. So we've got a real basic form here. Not amazing styling, but it works. Just got to quickly validate your form. We're going to do a first name, last name, email, password, and then confirm your password. I got a little lazy and I didn't put more dots in there, but you can look at that and do more if you'd like. I just put in one. And so there's your forms, and then if you look, you've got the CSS that includes the styles. Like I said, pretty simple. Mostly what we're here to do is learn how to do the form validation. So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, the first thing that we're going to want to do is just do a open function. And that's basically telling that it is listening and ready to go. And put that down to the end and close it. Oops, not before. Okay, so let's get started. Once again, you're going to want to take this down. If you want to bring that in, that's fine, whatever you'd like. Okay, after we start our function, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to tell the plugin that we're after the plugin. So just do form. Now, the next thing we need to do is bring in our form, and we're going to bring in the name of the form. And it equals validation. And then we're going to tell it to validate, which is basically calling the internal plugin that we just installed. And just to help prevent some confusion, let me show you what we just did here. Clean this up just a tad, and we'll go through on it. So basically, all I'm doing was we're opening the function, telling it to listen, and then we're doing the form, which I spelled wrong, not from. And then we're calling the name of the form. So we're calling name validation, and then we're saying .validate. Now, if you look back on the HTML, you'll notice I've got here jQuery form validation head class is a basic container, our header, and then we're calling form action does nothing because we don't really want to do anything right now, and then we're calling it the name validation. So you can name your form whatever you would like, and that is what is going to go right here. It's going to go out and it's going to look for the form name of validation, and then we're telling it that we're going to be validating it. Okay. Now the next thing that we do, and I'm just going to write in a little bit here, is we're going to be calling our rules. The rules is what the jQuery plugin uses to decide what you're going to be doing. So put a little note in there, rules, and we're going to call rules. Okay, and now this separates things with a simple comma as far as what's going to be going on, so keep that in mind. So let me explain a few things that's going to be going on here. I'm going to put in some comments so you have some notes. The key name is the attribute of the input field that we're going to be using, and then you need to define the validation rules for each field. So we'll just type that in real quick. and then you'll need to define the validation rules for each field. Okay. So the first rule that we are going to want to do is the first name. So what you do is you simply type in first name, and what that's going to do is it's going to look for the field of first name, and we're going to tell it in the rules that it is required. Put a comma in there. We're going to be doing some more, but that should work for now, and I'll show you what we're doing. So what we did is we called in the name action, and the name is validation, sorry. And then our first one is we're going to do for first name. It has the name of first name, so that's what it's going to be looking for. And what it's going to be doing is, let's see if it works. If they hit validate, it's going to say please enter your first name. It just puts in a simple message in there. Now we don't quite have everything set up yet. This is pulling from someplace else. But that is what it's going to be doing, is looking for that. That's going to be the behavior that we're looking for. Okay, let's go back to our form validation. Okay, so let's go through our different fields, and we'll do our next one is going to be, I'm going to call it the last name. We also want this one to be required. And then the next thing we're going to do is the email. Now with the email, we're going to be doing multiple rules, so we need to do this a little bit differently. If you need to do multiple rules, you call the email, then you put it in brackets, and you put in, so you do the required a little bit differently. Instead of just doing required, you need to put required true. And then we'll put in their email, true. Now when I put in email true, all it's doing is it's telling jQuery to use the built-in email rule, which the built-in email rule is going to say that it doesn't qualify as an email unless it has an @ in it, and it has a .us, a .com, a something like that. So instead of doing all the little validation rules that we learned previously, you just write in email true. That's it. Okay, the next thing we're going to want to do after email is the password. Let me talk to you about something real quick while I'm thinking about it. Now you'll notice that I put a comma here because there's a new rule, and then I put email. I did not put a comma, and then I put the comma here. This is one of those kind of funny things that you have to worry about with this certain plugin, is if you do the multiple rules, you need to put a comma after. Do not put a comma after the last rule. Okay, so let's move on to the password though, and we also want it to be required. True. And also in the password, we want to have a min length. We'll say 5 characters. And then close it. That's all we're really going to do for our password at this time. You can put other information there. You can say you need certain rules, whatever you'd like. You can look those up later, but we'll just go with the basics right now that it is required and has a min length of 5. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to do password confirm. And on the password confirms, it's really easy because all we're really interested in the password confirm is that it's equal. So you just do equal to password. It's that easy. Okay, close that one. And I realize I didn't do multiple rules in it. this is kind of one of those little exceptions to that rule. The equal to needs to be done in brackets. To figure out which ones need to be done in brackets, you'll just need to look up the documentation on their website. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is we want to set up error messages. Because if you have just a bunch of rules, it's just going to frustrate the user if they don't understand what they need to fix. They'll get frustrated. So what our error messages does is, I really need to learn how to spell today, is it tells the user what they're going to be doing. Now to do that, we wrote rules to begin with, so the next thing we need to do is messages, opening bracket, and we start all over again by calling our names. So we're going to be doing first name. And to do these, we simply put in our message. So we will please enter your first name, do a comma, then we'll do last name. And on this one, we'll say, please enter your last name, comma. Now the password is going to be a little bit different because we had multiple rules in it. So then we call password. Put in a bracket, and on when we call password and we call required, and if that's not fulfilled, then we're going to simply say, please provide a password. And then the min length, we'll put in a simple message of your password must be at least 5 characters long. Put in a comma, and then we'll move on to the password confirm. Once again, with the password confirm, you do need to put it in brackets because we are calling the equal to. And then we simply say passwords must match. And then let's do email. Please enter a valid email address. And then lastly, we want to put on there submit handler, which is basically telling it that you're submitting it. When you hit the submit button, run the function form, and form.submit. Okay, that should be it. So let's test out real quick. Everything should work. So we go back to forms. If you hit validate, it's going to come up with our error message as a please enter your first name. Well, let's start off by reloading. Okay, so when we reload, we have our nice simple form. Let's call Joe Bob. Now I'm going to screw up my email, so I'm going to say Joe Bob. It says please enter a valid email address. Okay, so that's obviously working. Joe Bob at Joe. And then password, we'll put in test. It's complaining that we don't have 5 characters. But we confirmed that we're the same. Now if you just did tests, it would say passwords must match. So that's going to be your different error messages if things come up. And that's a quick and easy way to do your form validation.